Last week our own Brian Martin asked whether offense or defense should be the priority for the Dallas Cowboys this offseason. We know that the team will look to make some additions on both sides of the football to help their team take the next step toward hopefully contending for a Lombardi Trophy in 2019. Brian took the stance that the Cowboys front office brain trust of Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, and Will McClay along with head coach Jason Garrett should prioritize the offensive side of the football. Here's what he had to say. Surprisingly enough, the Dallas Cowboys really don't have any glaring needs on the defensive side of the ball either. After finishing as one of the top defensive units in 2018, they will have nearly all of their starters returning for the 2019 season. But much like on the offensive side of the ball, there could be two starting spots up for grabs. If Cole Beasley does indeed leave via free agency, that's a big blow to the passing game. But it's not just him. Other than their rushing attack, the Cowboys' offense was ranked in the bottom half of the league in nearly every other category. With offensive coordinator Scott Linehan now gone, we can hope that improves, but that doesn't mean improving the offense shouldn't be the Cowboys' main off-season focus though. Brian Martin, inside the store I get his reasoning, though I disagree with the first point being made. Yes, the defense has a lot of really good players that are developing, but I think there are a couple obvious areas where upgrades can be made. First, at safety, where Jeff Heath continues to be a frustrating player, as evidenced by the final play against the Rams. Secondly, the defensive tackle spot could definitely use an infusion of talent. I believe the priority needs to continue to build on a defense that was surprisingly good, and downright dominant in their win over the New Orleans Saints in 2018. However, despite finishing 6th in the NFL in points allowed, 7th in yards allowed, and 5th in rushing yards allowed, they were middle of the pack against the pass and had the 6th worst third down conversion percentage allowed. They were a defense that got away with being excellent against the run and excellent in the red zone, allowing a touchdown only 51% of the time their opponent reached the red zone. They allowed the 6th fewest touchdowns in the NFL, and yet when they got into the playoffs, they weren't nearly as good. Sure, they held the Seattle Seahawks' top-ranked rushing attack in check for the game, holding them to only 73 rushing yards. The Seahawks threw for only 226 yards, but their offensive staff was insistent on running the football even though Russell Wilson was playing pretty well in the second half. The Seahawks were hitting the Cowboys for big plays that allowed them to make the game closer than it should have been. Had they tilted the run-pass ratio a bit more to put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands earlier in the game, it's possible that the game has a different outcome. Against the Rams, we saw the Dallas Cowboys interior get bullied while both C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley rushed for more than 100 yards. Maliek Collins and Antoine Woods were good for a lot of the year as the primary defensive tackles for the Dallas Cowboys, but with them ailing because of injury and illness, the Cowboys didn't have many answers for the Rams' offensive interior. Their ineffectiveness in the divisional round led to Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, and Sean Lee being generally ineffective as well. While the Dallas Cowboys can feel pretty good about what the defense did last season, there's no way they can go into the 2019 season satisfied with what they'll be working with. In addition to playing their NFC East opponents twice, with the Eagles and Giants able to score points and the Redskins typically a tough matchup, they'll play the New England Patriots, the Los Angeles Rams, the Green Bay Packers, the Minnesota Vikings, the New Orleans Saints, and the Detroit Lions. All those teams are capable of scoring a lot of points if the defense isn't having its best day. Throw in teams like the New York Jets, Buffalo Bills, and Chicago Bears, and you have three young offenses that are growing and fully capable of scoring points as well. The Dallas Cowboys front office has to go into the offseason ready to make upgrades to their defensive personnel. With the safeties that are available this offseason, Earl Thomas, Landon Collins, Trey Boston, Tyrann Mathieu, and several other intriguing names, the Cowboys will have an opportunity to upgrade the safety position. Between the draft and free agency, defensive tackle will be a high-priority position for the Cowboys. I know that many are looking at the offense and the steps that they need to make moving forward to be legit contenders, and they do have some improvements to make, but they look to be a unit that is trending in the right direction. Some better coaching for Dak Prescott and the offense should help them moving forward. A full off-season for Dak to work with Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Blake Jarwin, and Dalton Schultz should improve the chemistry between Prescott and his top receiving threats. Yes, there are areas that need to be upgraded on offense, and they may have to deal with filling the gap left by Cole Beasley if he does leave. The front office, however, can't go into the offseason satisfied with where they sit on the defensive side of the football. They are building something and are a couple of pieces away from having a truly elite defense. Finding those couple of pieces, a safety and a pass-rushing defensive tackle, are of the utmost priority this offseason if the Dallas Cowboys want to head back to the postseason in 2019. The Dallas Cowboys' year in 2018 was marked by big moves at wide receiver. Des Bryant was released in April, and then a first-round pick was traded in October to add Amari Cooper. But this 2019 offseason offer anything close to that level of activity? Unlike last season, Dallas should enjoy some stability in its starting lineup at receiver. Cooper returns at a much higher price, with the $13.9 million cap hit from his fifth-year option coming into play. Amari cost just $412,000 against the Cowboys' salary cap last year. That huge jump in cap cost may hurt, but Cooper backed it up with his Pro Bowl play in 2018. The top WR contracts average $15 to $17 million per year, so even now Dallas is arguably getting Amari at a bargain. The Cowboys didn't give up a first-round pick for a year-and-a-half rental, so we can expect them to seek a long-term extension with Cooper in the near future. With the contracts of DeMarcus Lawrence and Dak Prescott more immediate concerns, any new deal for Amari probably won't come until the middle of the season or in 2020. Not only is WR1 set for next year, but Michael Gallup appears locked in as the other starter. Of his 68 targets last year, 40 came in the second half of the year. It's a great season for a third-round rookie, and there are high hopes for Gallup's development in his first full off-season. The stability up front is a blessing for the Cowboys, but it doesn't relieve them of big decisions at the WR position this off-season. They face a particularly critical choice when it comes to the free agency of Cole Beasley. Dallas Cowboys WR Cole Beasley. It's hard to believe Beasley's already been in Dallas for 7 seasons. An undrafted gem, Cole has been one of the team's most reliable offensive players for some time. He led them in receiving in 2016 and has been one of the most efficient, QB-friendly options for the last several years. Beasley's contract expiring this year is only one issue. He has become very vocal lately about wanting to be a bigger part of the offense. His targets dropped tremendously over the course of 2018, which was especially evident when Cole got just 5 total passes thrown his way in the 2 playoffs games. If Beasley wants a larger role, does that also mean he wants more money? He was making a little over $3 million per season on his last deal. With Gallup on a cheap rookie contract, Dallas could afford to raise Beasley's compensation a bit. But if they don't plan to use him more than they did last year, then perhaps the two parties just aren't a good fit at this point. If Cole walks in free agency, then the Cowboys will now have to find a new number 3 receiver. The next best option would be Tavon Austin, but he is also a free agent. However, he could likely be resigned for a fraction of what Beasley would want. Austin has the physical skills to be an offensive weapon, but he doesn't have the reliable hands that Beasley does. Even if Dallas wants Tavon back solely for his skills on punt returns, they may not be ready to make him a bigger part of the offense. Dallas Cowboys WR Noah Brown. One option might be promoting Noah Brown, who's at times has reminded us of a young Des Bryant with his physical playing style. His blocking ability would lend itself to the single-back formations Dallas likes to run out of, and he's flashed some good hands in limited opportunities. In that scenario, Amari Cooper would likely play out of the slot, which he is certainly capable of with his quickness. The same would be done if Dallas went with another internal solution, such as Allen Hurns or Terrence Williams. That said, the Cowboys are unlikely to pick up the second-year option on Hurns' contract, not wanting to pay him over $6 million in 2019 after last year's low production. It also doesn't seem likely that they want to keep Williams after last year's issues. Taking all of that into consideration, Dallas may very well be doing some WR shopping in free agency. Fortunately for them, it's a favorable market if you're looking for a slot receiver. On top of Beasley and Austin already in the free agent pool, Golden Tate could at least match Cole's play if not potentially offer an upgrade. Baltimore's John Brown, Tampa's Adam Humphries, and Washington's Jamison Crowder are all other proven options. Emmanuel Sanders, while not currently a free agent, is a very possible cap casualty for the Broncos. Guys like Humphries and Crowder are younger than Beasley and could provide better long-term value on their contract. That may be a more attractive option at this point for the Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys WR Lance Lenoir. Dallas won't need to add a lot of bodies at WR thanks to a few young prospects. They still have Lance Lenoir and Cedric Wilson under contract, plus signed 2015 second-round pick Devin Smith as a potential rehabilitation project. But again, these guys are all just bodies right now. Lenoir has had his opportunities and not done much with them, though he does offer some value as a potential return man. Wilson spent his rookie season on injured reserve. The Cowboys could still look at a receiver with one of their mid-round draft picks, but it's hard to get much production early there. Last year's play from Michael Gallup was a surprise for a third-rounder. It's far more likely that Dallas will either work things out with Cole Beasley or pursue a veteran replacement in free agency. So no, thankfully, we don't have to worry about any monumental changes at the top of the WR depth chart in 2019. But Beasley was more than just a third receiver, and keeping or replacing him will have a significant impact on the offense going forward. Dallas is truly ready to commit to Dak Prescott as the quarterback of the future, then they can't take anything about his receiving options lightly. Therefore, wide receiver remains an important off-season focus for the Cowboys in 2019. A season after Jason Witten's retirement, the Dallas Cowboys still have a need at tight end. Replacing a future Hall of Famer is no easy feat, so it's only logical that it would take longer than a season to feel good about who's in at tight end. The Cowboys currently have two tight ends who could be pretty serviceable going forward. Fourth-round pick Dalton Schultz did a very solid job as the team's TE2, especially toward the second half of the season. He turned into a pretty good run blocker, and despite only racking up 116 yards and 12 catches, he's a guy the Cowboys' offense could use even more in the future. Also on the team is Blake Jarwin, who functioned as the Cowboys' main tight end for most of 2018. His performance against the New York Giants in Week 17 made us wonder whether or not he could be an important target on the Cowboys' offense. These two could very well have more in them than what we've seen. With a new offensive coordinator in town, tight end is a position the Cowboys could start using way more. As Bobby Belt pointed out on Twitter a few weeks ago, Scott Linehan's offense doesn't benefit tight ends very much. Before we give a verdict on what Schultz and Jarwin can do, I'd like to see them work with Kellen Moore's offense. One thing you consistently see when Scott Linehan takes over an offense is a drop in the starting tight end's production. Randy McMichael, Byron Chamberlain, and Jason Witten all saw drops in yards per catch, receptions per game, and yards per game once Linehan took over. Here's the thing. If the Cowboys are not taking a tight end in the second round of the 2019 NFL Draft, are they really upgrading what they already have? I'm not sure we'll be convinced about that if they draft the player for the position until the third or fourth round. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating for the Cowboys drafting a Tay in the second round, because I believe there are more pressing needs on the team. However, signing a veteran free agent might be the better option for upgrading the position. Should a veteran TAY be an option? This year, there are quite a few interesting names in the tight end market. Veterans such as Jared Cook, Tyler Eifert and even Antonio Gates will be looking for a new team pretty soon. I know, that would be getting older, but it could also mean getting better. Building a solid take committee with the veteran leading Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz could be the way to go for this football team. Tyler Eifert, Aaron Duster, USA Today Sports. Eifert is a great tight end when he's on the field. Durability is his biggest weakness, as he hasn't played more than 10 games since 2016. The Cowboys could take a risk on him and constantly rotate him with Jarwin and Schultz. It may be a huge risk, but it could pay off big time. If the price is right, Eifert should be targeted by the front office. The 2018 Oakland Raiders had a season to forget, winning only 4 games. Even still, Jared Cook's season was impressive. He finished the year with 896 yards and multiple 100-yard games. The biggest issue with Cook is his age. He turns 32 in April. But hey, he's literally coming off from a career year. Jesse James is a younger guy who could also be worth it. He's not a potent receiver, but he gets it done in the passing game and is one hell of a blocker. James could be a legit, cheaper option for the Cowboys in free agency. There are a lot of names out there the front office could look at. Charles Clay was just released by the Buffalo Bills, and Nick Boyle will be looking for a new job after new arrivals pushed him out of the Baltimore Ravens roster, just to mention a few names. We'll see what the front office's plans are soon enough, but right now, I'd say tight end is a need the Dallas Cowboys should at least try to address in free agency instead of the NFL draft. Unlike other positions on their roster, cornerback appears ready to offer the Dallas Cowboys stability in 2019. However, that doesn't mean the team can just ignore it this offseason. There are still a few decisions to be made. Thanks to a shrewd move in April of last year, Dallas will be enjoying Byron Jones' services at a bargain. They picked up the 5th-year option on his rookie contract and will be paying him just $6.3 million next season. That's a steal for a Pro Bowl corner, who generally make more than double that amount in a single year. The Cowboys are still left the decision of whether or not to give Jones a long-term deal now or wait until he hits free agency in 2020. It's easy to say that they should enjoy the discount and worry about it next year. But then you risk a second Pro Bowl trip and the lure of the open market. Byron's asking price could only go up. Of course, Dallas could then also have the option of using the franchise tag. Keep in mind that Jones will turn 27 this September. Dallas could decide that it makes sense to play through the rookie deal this year, franchise him in 2020, and then reassess when he's about to turn 29 years old. If they give Byron a long-term deal now, then they'll have to pay him like one of the top corners in football. It may be wise to wait. Dallas Cowboys CB Chidobe Awuzie. Another decision facing the Cowboys is if they think they can improve at the second starting position. It was an up-and-down year for Chidobe Awuzie, but he was playing his best toward the end of the season. Dallas could hope that a second year with Chris Richards coaching, and just more general growth for a third-year player, will elevate Awuzie's game. However, with plenty of cap space to work with, Dallas could pursue a solid veteran option and then allow Awuzie to play the nickel role. It would not only perhaps improve the CB2 position but also bolster depth overall. Speaking of depth, Anthony Brown returns for the final year of his rookie deal. While never spectacular, Brown has been a gem as a former 6th-round pick with 29 career starts. He brings exceptional value and may even compete with Awuzie for the starting job. While arguably the team's best young corner in 2017, Jordan Lewis comes into this season with a lot of uncertainty. He fell out of favor last season, perhaps for not fitting the physical style that Richard likes. but he did manage to snag the game-clinching interception in Dallas' upset win over the New Orleans Saints. A scheme mismatch is the issue. The Cowboys could look to trade Lewis this offseason. He still has 2 years left on his rookie deal and was considered a first-round prospect by some in 2017. A cornerback-needy club might have more use for him than Dallas seems to. If they did move Jordan, the Cowboys might turn to Donovan Olumba to fill out the depth chart. He was one of their surprising performers in last year's training camp and spent the year on the practice squad. At 6 feet 2 inches, he has the size that the team seems to be looking for now in its corners. More than likely, Dallas will ride with this group in 2019 with no big changes. I do think the Lewis trade is possible, especially with the Cowboys short on draft picks this year. But don't expect any major cap space or draft capital to go at one of the team's more solid positions. With all the other work Dallas needs done this offseason, a little stability at cornerback is a luxury.